Well, I'm delighted today to be speaking to Naro Zimmerman from JTC Group. Welcome, Naro.
Thank you, David.
So we're here today in New York. JTC are one of the sponsors of the PCD dinner tomorrow night at the Yale Club. Are you looking forward to the event?
Yeah, I can't wait actually. And it's great to be here face to face with the advisors that we work with, because obviously being based in the Cayman Islands, I don't come up to New York that often. We try to make up to 4 times a year, but you can't beat sitting around a table and sort of exchanging ideas in person.
Great. So tell us a little bit more about some of the JTC colleagues that are going to be at the event.
So we're going to have representatives from 5 offices there, which kind of speaks to the breadth that JTC has globally. Obviously myself from the Cayman Islands, then we've got New York, South Dakota, Delaware, and another colleague from our institutional offices as well. So that's across private client services and institutional client services as well.
Super. So a really broad scope of conversations that can be had there with the professional advisors based here in New York in the key law firms and banks. Absolutely. You see a lot of activity here generally for the group out of the New York ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why we got our office here, right? Because we got our first office about 5 years ago, I think it was, and then we moved into these bigger offices that we're in now. And there's so much opportunity here. And the fact that we can be 5 minutes away with my colleagues in New York when advisors need to speak to us, I think, again, you can't beat that. So the opportunity for us is both internationally, which is what you and I are more used to, and domestically as well. So I was in our Delaware office this week, which primarily serves domestic US market, but it's got a growing international base as well. I think that, again, speaks to the fact that particularly US citizens are becoming more outwardly mobile as well, and their families are going across the globe as well. So I think that's certainly interesting for us.
Yeah, I mean, what were some of the themes from the conference there in Delaware? I mean, I know it was quite a large meeting of professionals, wasn't it? Was there any sort of takeaways or trends that you picked up from that gathering?
Yeah, so I was speaking on transparency as what's been like the big push for transparency offshore for a number of years, and that's only really got to the US now. So they've got their Corporate Transparency Act, which is effective the 1st of January 2024. And we had the equivalent of that in 2017. So I was doing a look back to 2017 to where we find ourselves today. So that was interesting to see the similar themes that existed 6 years ago to what they've got now. And unfortunately for them, I was saying it didn't get any better, guys. It got worse.
Yeah.
And giving them some of the realities of what life's been like then, and preparing clients for the position on transparency
the realities
as well.
that are coming down the track. You need the right team around you, don't you?
Exactly. And again, the benefit of JTC is that we have that experience and we can share that, and we're very collegiate on how we do that as well. And then outside of that, it was just really interesting for me to see the domestic trust position in the US as well. Again, there's similarities, but obviously they've got their different states, and I kind of likened it to Delaware and South Dakota being similar to Guernsey and Jersey, that it's essentially the same industry, but they're quite competitive about how they work against each other. So yeah, with my background, it was quite interesting to see that dynamic.
Last time we recorded one of these chats, it was when you were in Dubai. You've been in Cayman now for the last 18 months.
Yeah.
I mean, how are you finding it over there?
Yeah, it's great. It's great. It's a really good island. I think everyone's very happy because the sun's shining all the time. But on a professional level, it's been amazing to see the depth that they've got on the islands with trustees, lawyers, that side of things as well. So whenever I speak to clients and say, look, you and I like each other today, that might always be the case. So you want to be in a jurisdiction where you've got a lot of choice, and that's what I've been really impressed with in the Cayman Islands. And again, because of the location, the work we do with North America and South America as well, that client base is really, really interesting as well.
Yeah, there's huge opportunity, for example, in markets like Brazil, isn't there, for Cayman, for structuring?
There is, and obviously in Brazil in particular, they're debating quite a big change to legislation there, which would still give us opportunities for Brazilians, but it'd be in a very different manner. So revocable trust would be taxed on a look-through basis, as I understand it. So you'd be looking at irrevocable trust. So that position will be a big change to what we've been used to. And a lot of Brazilians love the British Virgin Islands, for instance. that would be a big change because the classic BVI company wouldn't be as open to Brazilians anymore. But again, we're keeping on top of that. One of my colleagues in Miami is Brazilian, and he's our market expert for that. So again, that depth that we have at JTC enables us to be at the front of all of these changes.
What kind of trends do you see from the rest of the Caribbean within the group? Is there anything particularly of interest happening?
I think Bahamas is very popular with North America. Again, I think because of location. And then BVI remains very popular. The numbers coming out of BVI are still very strong. They've had their issues over the last few years, but they're getting on the right side of that now. And we saw last week they came off the EU non-corruptive listed jurisdictions, so they're no longer on the blacklist, which does have a big weight to it. And when you're dealing with certain financial institutions, if you're on those blacklists, they don't like to deal with you. Countries like France put a higher effective rate on tax on people that have BVI companies. So that will now be removed. So it's a big plus for the jurisdiction, and that speaks to the work that the people in the BVI have done to get off that list. And I think in terms of the Cayman Islands, it's really flying as a jurisdiction and continues to thrive across the private client services, but also the more traditional Cayman success story has been the fund industry there. It's the biggest fund jurisdiction in the world. And
how do you see that coming into the private client world then? The expertise that the fund's business story has been a real growth story, but how do you see it, some of that expertise as well, translating into how you work with, for example, family offices or sophisticated investors?
There's Cayman has got its niches, and like if you look at the private fund regime as well, that does dovetail nicely into some of the family offices. And again, talking about family offices, and a slight parallel to Dubai is that there's a lot of family offices actually on the island, and they're continuing to set up on the island as well. So, and again, you and I have seen that in the Middle East and Dubai in particular. So that's a slight parallel. Obviously, Cayman's a lot smaller than Dubai, but there's actually a lot of our clients are on the island, significant, billionaire clients that live in the island and have their infrastructure there. And that speaks to how well the government has managed Cayman as a financial center. They realize it is a big part of their life and will continue to see the island thrive in the future. So they've made that easier for people to come in, and things like gaining citizenship by investment in the island as well. That's a big attraction there too. So it's very dynamic, and I think we're lucky in the Cayman Islands that we're working with government and regulators that understand what we do, and we're doing it on a collegiate basis to move forward. So that's really pleasing to see.
And is your perception the New York-based professionals, the lawyers, the tax advisors, the bankers, are familiar with the Cayman proposition and specifically sort of why it stands out? Or what do you feel it's a very competitive landscape out there, isn't it, for international structuring?
Yeah, it is. I think, it helps with this side of the world. And, it's not to say that New York-based advisors don't use the Channel Islands where I'm from, but I think being this side of the world, time zone makes a big difference. The fact, we're only an hour behind New York, but yes, they understand it. We can get on a plane very easily. And again, what I will go back to, which I think is a theme we'll see tomorrow night, is that the depth of choice on the islands is as good as anywhere else in the world. So I think advisors are comfortable with what they're selling, and when they recommend it to their clients, they know that they can rely on it. And we talk about the case law in the Cayman Islands. It's got some of the best and strongest case law in the world. So again, you're not saying it with any uncertainty, and the courts will be consistent in what they deliver. You never want to get into litigation, but it is a fact of our industry. So again, having that depth of case law and jurisprudence is again, one of the strong reasons why Cayman continues to be one of the best centres in the world.
And I was speaking to Anthony Partridge about Step Cayman coming up in January 24. He was saying that they've got a fantastic agenda, delegate list. I mean, do having conferences like that really help cement Cayman's position on the map? The fact that I think you mentioned 350 delegates from all corners of the private client world. You find it exciting that those kind of things get, are solid parts of the calendar now? Yeah,
no, they are. And I think, when the conference finished last year, people were already saying that when's it going to be next year? I want a book to come back. And if you look at our our list of speakers that we've got for the conference, there's a lot of very prominent international advisors that want to come down and be part of it. So it speaks volumes for what we're doing. So I'm on the committee at Step Cayman with Anthony. So, we're very excited to host that in January.
It's a great opportunity to spend some time as well with people, cement those relationships. And I guess it can prompt people who haven't made a visit, but maybe dealt with Cayman professionals remotely to actually get on the plane and kick
absolutely.
the tires.
And it's only 4 hours down from New York as well. So, that, and again, that speaks to the government recognizing that things like air links are a massive
vital
part of why we will succeed, both for advisors and clients to visit us. So, if you look at the Caribbean, I think that's why Cayman is probably the best in the Caribbean for all of those number of factors, but it's everyone pulling together. And I think that what I love, and it's been present since day one in the island, is that it's so collegiate, and that's across firms as well. They're competitors, but we all work together. It probably speaks to the fact that there's so much work there that we're not being maybe as competitive as others, but that
a collegiate approach is always more pleasant, isn't it?
It really makes it stand out. So I think that's great.
Fantastic. Well, look, Naro, look forward to seeing you tomorrow night, raising a glass and interacting with our guests and sharing the latest from the sector. So
great. Looking forward to it, and I think it's my fourth jurisdiction with PCD. So
we'll send you the T-shirt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Naro.
Thank you, David.